May meeting of Planning and Zoning. If everybody would, let's do roll call first, please.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, Chair Costello.
Here.
Commissioner Tantillo.
Here.
Commissioner Svestica.
Present.
Commissioner Gormley Barnes.
Here.
Commissioner Skovich.
Here.
Commissioner Holm, absence. And Commissioner Bruno.
Here.
All right, we have a quorum.
Okay, if everybody please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, did everybody get a copy of the April minutes, and did you all have a chance to review?
I'm going to mention really quick,
Sure.
Trustee Farrell Mayer was not listed as in attendance. I think we should add her.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any corrections or comments or modifications in any way? Would somebody like to make a motion to approve the minutes with the addition of Commissioner Farrell Mayer?
I make a motion to
And-
approve.
And second?
I'll second.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Our next order of business is a special use hearing for the shed at 6537 Howard Avenue. Is the petitioner here? Okay, you want to give us your name and address and obviously, and tell us a little bit about your situation.
Oh, sorry, I'm sorry, really, can we get a motion to open a public hearing?
Thank you.
Yeah, procedural stuff.
Sorry.
I'll make the motion.
We got a motion to open in a second, I take it? All in favor of opening the public hearing signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries to open the public hearing. Thank you. And state your name, please,
Christina Calderon.
and maybe you want to talk into the mic.
Yeah, Christina Calderon.
Okay.
I live at 6537 Howard Avenue. We purchased the house back in August of 2020. It currently had a shed and a fence at the time it was being purchased. And I filed all the stuff so that we can keep it.
Okay. So let the record state that that the petitioner has provided a plat of survey, that the shed has been in existence, that the petitioner has agreed to pay her share of the mailing fee. And, okay, let's open for discussion.
Just one quick question. Did you purchase the home in August of 2020 or 2022?
2020.
Okay.
Is my typo.
Okay, I was going to say we might need to fix that. And then just out of curiosity, when you purchased the home, did the realtor, anyone give you any information about the sheds and fence ordinances that we have in the village?
No information on the shed and the fence. They said that it was like open. It was going to be open to see if we had to remove it. But as of when we bought it, it did not have to be removed.
Okay. Thank you.
Are you aware that we now require screening of the sheds?
Screening, what do you mean?
Well, we would, if a shed is going to be in the open area of a lot, we would like it to be covered with some kind of plantation, and so most of it is covered from view from your neighbors.
Yeah, I think, well, we have trees surrounding it, away from the neighbors. I provided pictures, but I'm not sure if there's actually like leaves and such on the trees at the time that the picture was taken. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, what we can do is we'll have our village staff, code enforcement, if you don't mind, you'll come take a look, and if it's screened from all sides already, then you'll be fine. But if one side needs to get screened or something like that, we'll let you know. It's just part of the requirements for having one, so.
Okay. So like just like planting other stuff, I guess? Oh.
Yeah, like arborvitae or a bush or
An evergreen, some
something,
sort of evergreen.
something like that, yeah.
Okay.
Right, looks like just the back is covered, right? The back's up to the fence, and that one's kind of...
Yeah, on 3 sides, we like it, obviously not the side where the door is, but we we like to see some vegetation around it, so mostly it's covered.
Oh, okay.
It'll look nice.
Sounds good.
Anybody have any questions, or?
I know we were also informed when we bought the house, that we were also grandfathered in through the fence as well. So they said that that wouldn't be an issue at the time that it was bought, but to be
Okay.
completely transparent, that they did mention that.
Was it grandfathered in, Andy?
No, it wasn't. A lot of people on that side of town
Right,
think that it's grandfathered in. Some of the homeowners on that side of town had gone through this process back in 1984. So I think they assume that they're all grandfathered
Right,
in.
right.
So, yeah.
Is there a way to tell if the people that lived at our home previously had went through the process?
Yeah, we have a record. So basically, whenever the village grants what's called a special use in this case, they pass an ordinance specifically saying this address is allowed to have this thing. And we have a record of all the village ordinances, and we have some for some homes, but unfortunately for you, yours was not one of them. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
However, right?
Yeah. So we'll deal with the fence issue in a minute, but
Okay.
any other comments, questions, conversation regarding the shed? To reiterate, the petitioner has gathered the signature from the neighbors, has provided the Plata survey, has agreed to pay their share of the bulk mailing fee, and if you, we will require that that it be screened on 3 sides, and the village will follow up with an inspection sometime this summer on that.
Okay.
Would somebody like to make a motion that we approve this petition?
Perhaps a
Oh, yeah?
administrative comment, but Andy, you might want to correct before this goes into record. Homeowner moved into the home in August of 2020, not 2022.
Yeah, we just said that.
Yeah, I will for
Did
the
you just say
minutes.
that?
Yeah. Well, not just the second, but yeah, a minute ago. That's, Danielle asked that question.
And Danielle
Okay.
said it too.
Gosh dang. What are we talking about? Are we talking about a shed? Just a shed at this point. Man, oh man. Is Dan here?
Yeah, no.
Should be here for the buffet.
It's Tuesday.
Yeah.
I'm
Stay
sorry.
awake then.
And just to clarify for the homeowners, so that there's going to be an inspection soon that will identify what the landscaping requirements are going to be. So they should wait until they get some direction.
Yeah, I was going to
How
say,
did-
I'll give you a call tomorrow, and we
Okay.
can talk about just next steps stuff. so,
Okay, perfect. That was
yeah.
actually my next question. so
Yeah,
perfect.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, in general, we like 3 sides pretty much covered. Obviously, they may not be fully mature by July, but we'd like to see that you're going to have plants that are going to cover 75% of it, of the height of it, on 3 sides. So,
Okay. That's good.
okay, would anybody like to make a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, would somebody like to second?
I'll second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries to approve the petition for the shed with the conditions of screening, bulk fee being paid. And that's it.
Can we get a motion to close that public hearing and then a motion to open a second public hearing?
Okay, would somebody like to so move to close?
I'll move to close the current public hearing on the shed.
And second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries to close this public hearing. Can we have a motion to open the public hearing regarding the fence at the same address, 6537 Howard Avenue?
I'll make that motion.
And second?
I'll second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, public hearing is open for the petition for allowing the fence that is currently at the property. And as you said, the fence was there before you got there. Your neighbors have no objection?
Nope.
Okay. Comments, questions, commissioners?
Andy, this village will own demo and removal of the fence?
That is the recommendation that the commission has been, and the board has been approving over the last, for the homes like this in Bartlett subdivision. The board approved it, I think, out of a recognition that the village did not do its due diligence for a long time in enforcing its ordinance. And so that is why the recommendation is that, because that's how we've been dealing with the other ones. So.
For your information, I'll just repeat what Andy just said in case it wasn't clear to you. But we've been approving these fences on the condition that they be removed when you sell or leave the premises, and it will be removed at the village's expense.
Okay.
But you can have it as long as you maintain it.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we're going to be
Which
voting
I
on.
kind of was against from the beginning. I mean, I know we've been doing it for everyone, so we should, but unless they had a financial hardship, but just go on record that I think that the homeowner should get rid of it, but.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Put that in the minutes. If there's no further discussion, can we have a motion to approve the special use for the fence so long as the existing fence be removed prior to the sale or transfer of the property, and that be performed or paid for by the village?
So how do we track this since we're no longer doing sale or inspections at the sale of the property?
Is anything recorded? Probably not, huh?
So we have we track all the ordinances, and we have a list of those who've been granted this fence with this criteria, and basically it's going to be up to the homeowner when they leave to inform us, and if they don't inform us, then we're going to have to go to the new homeowner and say, sorry, but this was the arrangement. We're going to take down your fence.
See, that causes an issue, right? I mean, if
I mean,
I know. I'm just saying,
yeah.
we'll have another fight on our hands and someone upset.
But I mean, I think we already got a fight on our hands if we make them take it down themselves.
Does something potentially get filed on the
But this
property?
homeowner knows about it.
Yeah, there's something that's so every year we give the special uses to the county.
Okay,
We
so
let
it
them.
would be
so it's filed on
recorded.
the property too.
It should come up in a title search
Yeah.
that this is a requirement of the village? Okay.
Yeah, it will be.
Realtors should be doing their jobs, but if they aren't,
Yes.
the title search is going to turn it up. Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, so it will be part of that kind of search if the realtor is doing their due diligence too.
So we actually record this
Yeah.
condition. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great. Okay. All right.
This is just, this is not relevant for this case in particular, but I just noticed on this plat of survey, a unique condition I don't think we've seen before, which is that there's a 10-foot utility easement at the rear of the property, which I presume is for overhead power. There must be overhead power lines running back there. And this fence was put in right across that easement. So in a situation like that, somewhere else in the village, like if there was a fence in place, even if it was, for all other intents and purposes, it was okay to be there, can the utility come in and
Yeah, anything in the easement.
remove something if it's in the easement and there's really, they haven't given permission for it to be there?
Yeah, anything in an easement can be removed if for necessary repairs or improvements. So.
Yeah, were you aware of that? When you purchased the home, did anybody mention that?
No.
Well, the fence is is within an easement, a utility easement, and if the utilities wanted to use that for some reason, they could remove the fence. That's not a village issue, but not likely, but
Okay.
just so you know.
Yeah, maybe if like ComEd had to do some kind of big repair to the power lines behind your house, then perhaps they might have to remove it, but it doesn't happen much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm presuming at some point they go through there and like trim trees away from the wires or something, which they have the permission to do. And I presume they can do that without having to disturb the fence, but technically they
I do know that
could if it was in their way.
when
guess.
I moved in, I had called ComEd to make sure that none of the trees were blocking power lines, and they did come out and actually inspect everything and told me that all the trees were fine was where they were.
Mm.
So I don't know if that helps, but
Yeah. No, it happens all the time. People put fences and easements, but not supposed to. Okay, so we would like a motion to recommend to the board that we approve this petition to approve the special use for the fence.
I think we have the motion. I think we don't
do
have
we?
a second. Don't we? We have the motion. No?
I don't remember that somebody
Oh.
made the motion. Did you get that, Andy?
Let's just make the motion
Yeah.
then.
Who would like to make that motion?
I shall make the motion.
Okay, Danielle, and who would second?
I'll second.
And Bob seconds. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously to recommend to the board that the petition be approved. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll
Thank
give
you
you
so
a call
much.
tomorrow, and we can do follow-up stuff. So.
okay, perfect. Thank you, Andy. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
sure.
Thank you.
So now we need a motion to close the public hearing for the fence at 6537 Howard.
Motion to close?
Second? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries to close the public hearing. Now, we need a motion to open a public hearing. Need a motion to open the public hearing for the zoning code modification for garden fences.
Motion to open?
I'll
Eh.
second.
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we are now in our public hearing for the zoning code modification for garden fences. And do you want to start out? We had a
Yeah.
nice discussion or a preliminary discussion last month.
Yeah, so we talked a bit of, like you're saying, we talked a bit about it last month, and I've gone and I've done some research. Included, I think, some information related to kind of the biggest questions that were asked about what do we have on the books right now, what does the Garden Act allow us to do, things of that nature. In regards to existing regulations regarding gardens, we really don't have any. And this is actually very common. I looked at Hinsdale, Burridge, Willow Springs, Western Springs, Willowbrooks, and Countryside's Code of Ordinances. All of them, except for Countryside, do not have any regulations concerning gardens, and Countryside's regulation is that it has to be in the rear yard. That is the only rules that they have. The other question was, what can the village regulate regarding gardens? And I quoted the act, and the full act is actually pretty short, so I have the entire act on the next page as well if you want to look at it. And so we're able to regulate a garden pretty much as long as it does not effectively prohibit a garden. But I would say first, if the commission would like to add regulations concerning gardens beyond the fencing or garden mesh, that's fine, but I don't think that we can do that in this, because this was advertised as a public hearing specifically related to garden fences / mesh. So just something to keep in mind too. As far as the garden fencing / mesh, I think that there's a couple options. We could pass something that's a bit more general, saying you're allowed to put up any kind of garden fence as long as it's directly abutting a garden and 3 feet high or shorter. Or you could say specifically garden mesh / chicken wire is the only thing that's allowed. I think you have that option too. So With that, I think I'll let the commission kind of discuss, and if you got any questions, just ask me. So.
One update on here, right? We have at the March meeting, it was April, right? The first time we heard about this?
I think so, yeah.
Just update the background there. Not that it really matters, but.
So under the premise that we have garden beds, not necessarily in the back of a property, but along the area of a home, and we chose to allow for any type of mesh fence, that would be something we would take into account as approved, correct?
I'm sorry, what are you asking?
So around a house, you have flower beds.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe you want to cordon those off so rabbits and whatever don't eat those. And if you chose to put a fence around it for whatever period of time, that would be okay. Under the garden.
Under what we're talking about,
Okay.
yes.
And if you wanted to go more traditional garden, just like your pictures are showing, that would then be suggested that it has to be in the back of the property.
That's not what the current, the ordinance change that we're discussing would do. That would be something separate. Right, really, all we're looking at right now is just allowing mesh or fencing, if you want to call it.
And not the location.
Yeah, this is not concerning
That's another
location.
meeting, yeah.
If you want us to look into that, I think that can go to the board, and then the board can give staff direction to look into that as far as garden regulations other than fencing. But for this text amendment to the zoning code, we can really only kind of touch fencing. Otherwise, we'll have to do another public hearing.
So this
notice.
act here, it really, doesn't it just specifically talk about vegetable gardens? That's the act that
Products
was
for
passed.
human consumption.
Yes.
Yes.
So, as Bob was saying though, like, if you had your flower bed, that isn't really considered a vegetable.
It does say the term vegetable garden means any plot of ground or elevated soil bed on residential property where vegetables, herbs, fruits, flowers, pollinator plants, leafy greens, or other edible plants are cultivated.
What's edible mean?
Well, there's edible flowers.
You could eat anything, right?
Dandelions are edible. I mean, I'm just for a baseline, dandelions are edible. So that's why I think the defining of fences and their specific use for gardens kind of requires us to define gardens in parallel, because as was just mentioned, right, there's no outlining feature that would delineate a garden for human consumption versus my entire front yard is a pollinator garden, and therefore I must fence my entire front yard. So that's kind of just why I feel like those two things really do need to move together as we talk about defining and regulating.
Just as a point of conversation, I was thinking of that too from the last month, and I was thinking perhaps we could say the fencing can be so high, 3 feet-ish, and so big, but if somebody wants it bigger, then they would have to come in front of us so that we could have a discussion on that.
Limiting the size of the area it could enclose.
Yeah.
Well, and the placement of it, I think, is going to be an issue as well, right? I mean, we've got some other, we've talked, about placement of sheds. We have placement requirements for pools.
Right.
Maybe it's something similar to that, so that it's not in the back corner of your yard right next to your lot line or something. I don't know. But the pictures that we have here as examples are not fences in the sense that many people might assume. If the code says you're allowed to have a 3-foot fence, what we have in mind, I think, are raised beds or sort of temporary structures that you could easily pull up and relocate, or you could take down in the winter if you needed to, or, when you moved, you could easily remove all trace of it having been there, which is different than fences, which someone would come in and dig a foundation and, sink poles into the ground, and that's not, my understanding from last month is that's not what we're talking about allowing.
Right.
So Andy, just as a point of clarification, this specific discussion is just to decide on the type of fencing that will allow for a garden.
Yeah, so so this this kind of started with I had a homeowner ask me about fencing or putting chicken wire up around their garden, and I looked at the code, and it's kind of gray as to whether or not it would count as a fence, which obviously fences aren't allowed unless you get a special use. That being said, there's a lot of garden fences currently in town, and chicken wire really, and I don't think that's really should be considered the same as a fence, kind of like what Commissioner Barnes was saying. And so the reason why the text amendment to the zoning code is brought to the commission is to just clarify in the code so that there is a distinguished difference between the two. This is explicitly allowed. Fences are not allowed. So for tonight, yeah, it's really just discussion of what kind of, you can call it fencing or mesh or chicken wire, what kind of barrier do we as the village want to allow to be placed around gardens. Now, the Garden Act, I brought that up as kind of something related to it, kind of just showing that no matter what, gardens are not something that municipalities can get rid of or ban, or as Illinois residents have a right to a garden, the Garden Act, and since they have a right to it, they're going to want to protect it from animals, and so hence the fence or mesh amendment.
Yeah, and then where my thoughts are going, I think we could decide what type of material could be used, because that's the focus of our goal on this particular topic. But to Danielle's point, if someone said, I'm going to plant an entire row in the back of my property and consider that a garden, and because I'm allowed a fence around the garden, then it kind of circumvents the whole, I can't have a fence, but I can't have a garden fence. So we'd have to.
Sure.
And that's the future discussion.
And well, one of the requirements right now is that any garden barrier would have to be 3 feet or less. So you can't have a 6-foot fence.
No.
With a garden. It has to be 3 feet or less. That's what the staff recommendation.
3 feet or less from where?
I know we talked about this too. I would say from
Ground.
Yeah, but then there's also people with the garden
Raised
beds.
garden beds.
I think I would say 3 feet or less from like the top of the bed or the ground if it's in the ground.
Okay.
Because like right now we're planning our community garden. I know we talked a little bit about this last year. In the community garden, one of the things why this code amendment is up is we want to be compliant with our own garden, and we want to have wire mesh to protect the garden from rabbits. So that's another reason why this has been brought to the commission.
And specifically has to be wire according to what you want, or is there a plastic material you're not opposed to?
For me, I don't think the material really matters. I think the most common is kind of like the most common I'd say is something like this green mesh, or also I've seen like silver, called chicken wire, something like that. That's the most common.
And wouldn't you want that for flow of air and light and?
Yeah, if you have a full barrier, I think you're gonna kill whatever you're planting.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's gonna be an issue.
Yeah.
So future discussion is location and the space that it could consume, length, that's all future discussion. Here, we're just trying to say, yes, you could have a garden fence, and it has to have these particular parameters placed against it, which is any type of material. We'd have to get specific, I would imagine, and then just allow for that to occur. And then in a future discussion, we'll talk about the dimensions of a garden
Yes.
and then location.
Setbacks, stuff like that,
All that
yeah.
stuff, okay. So that kind of distills it down, right?
Yeah. Are we all okay with a mesh fencing?
Yeah, it might-
About 3 feet from the flower bed or from the bed?
Maybe we can say something about how it can't be primarily built of wood. Like there could be wood, there could be wood supports, but it can't just, be a picket fence. Again,
Yeah,
I
like in
don't know,
this
there may
picture
be
it
some
says.
way that in our code or another code that's defined, but this is like, yeah, pickets with something kind of strung in between them that's not rigid necessarily.
Okay.
And it's transparent,
Yeah.
for
Allows
view.
light and air to pass through freely.
Mhm.
I'm kind of surprised, to be honest, that Burridge and Hinsdale don't have this lockdown. Like, you're allowed chicken wire that's, no
At
more
this
than
dimension,
2 by
yeah.
2.
Maybe it doesn't come up.
Maybe it doesn't come up.
Yeah, I don't think it comes up because they don't have a prohibition against fences, so it doesn't violate their code,
Yeah.
Huh.
So what did we all kind of recap here? We are in agreement that any material that's wire or mesh is acceptable and 3 feet
And
below is
it's
acceptable.
for the purpose of enclosing a garden to protect it.
Yeah,
So,
okay. And then we'll table all future
yeah.
discussions on exactly what,
Yeah. So mesh or some type of mesh enclosure, but we would allow wood or metal to be a structure with posts or
To support
base
it,
and
yeah.
posts and support.
3 feet from the ground.
3 feet from, where the
The base of the bed.
base of the bed, yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, I,
Good enough?
no objections to that.
Motion time?
Yeah.
Do you know what we just approved?
Yes, I know what I wrote it down, yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Make sure whatever you do on your bed is closer to a Cadillac than a Chevy.
Yeah.
So then we can point to that and use that as a standard.
It's the model home for garden
Yes.
fences.
Yes. Yeah, village staff is actually going to pull together and get one, and one of the public works employees is going to do the planting, and we're all going to
Oh,
share
wow.
vegetables and stuff like that.
That's
so,
lovely.
yeah.
That's great.
So,
Yeah.
one final interjection. Raised beds
I couldn't get
that are on, I'm sure, Daniel, you've seen those.
I have one. I have 3, actually.
Yeah, I'm on my 3rd one now. That's also okay. Okay,
Yeah.
good. All right then.
Yeah, I like that we're not denying gardens.
We have a question.
I don't know if this is the time to ask a question or not.
Sure.
Yeah, go for it.
You talk about putting this around a garden, and Andy and I had this conversation with the end of decks railings. Does this barrier, and I'm not gonna call it a fence, because I don't think it's a fence, I think barrier is probably a much better term. Does it have to be adjacent to the garden, or can it be 5 feet away?
No, it's got to be directly abutting it, kind of just like
We
the,
already
yeah.
have that problem.
Yep. No. Yeah.
I'm just trying to
No,
avoid
good
our
question.
within our subdivision.
Good question.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we'll have to think of all the caveats and loopholes for someone that'll make this a fence, but under the garden rule.
Because it will happen.
Yeah.
Guarantee it.
Okay.
But we'll have our model home version that we could point to, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, somebody want to make a motion to close this public hearing?
I'll make a motion to close.
Or can we get a,
Oh,
can we
Oh,
pass
no,
it?
don't we have?
oh,
I
are
think
we,
we-
oh, we're voting on
Yeah,
this?
yeah.
Okay, all right.
Slow down.
Oh, okay.
I know, short agenda, it's
So-
so new, yeah.
We want to recommend to the board that we add to our ordinance, or we're not adding to an ordinance?
Recommend modification to the zoning code.
Okay, we want to recommend to the board a modification to the zoning board to allow for garden fences made out of mesh not to exceed 3 feet above the flower bed floor And of course,
Must butt
and-
up to the garden.
yeah, must be for the sole purpose of enclosing a garden. And of course, another material for structure is allowable. Is that good? For support
Yeah.
and base is allowable.
And I think somewhere in that statement, we have to say not, just make sure it's from the ground up that we measure the 3 feet. So in this
No,
instance. there
no,
could
it's
be-
from the bed up.
Yeah, I think
Then there
we.
has to be a limit to how tall the bed can be, I guess.
So that's where I was going. You put a 5-foot bed
Why-
in place and then a 3-foot fence.
Why not? I mean,
Okay.
is that a problem?
I don't.
I mean,
see
somebody
it
that
being a
maybe
problem.
has some physical issues might want a very high flower bed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I have a raised bed that's probably about 4 feet off the ground, so I don't have to like punch into it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was just
I
pointing
don't-
it out that
Yeah.
if that's okay, then that's the way we'll go.
does anybody have a objection to that?
Nope.
Good.
As long as we eventually limit the size and location of those, that's
Yeah.
fine, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's,
We got enough detail in that motion?
Yes.
Do we say anything about not having dug foundations for it? Do we say anything about not, the posts can't be sunk into the ground, or how do we, I don't know. I'm trying to think of all the ways that people could do an end around and turn this into a real fence.
I don't think they could if it's
Garden,
got to be
right?
see-through, directly abutting a garden, and 3 feet. No one's going to build a 3 feet fence to. I don't think so.
I don't think,
garden
they're not going to
bed-
raise their whole yard.
Yeah, and then if they do, I mean, wow, yeah. Got to give them some credit if they do that.
and then as far as the other option is to have a hardscape with that objective in mind, that you're going to have a garden bed, but it's going to be hardscape. There's no objection to that either.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a garden. Charlie, do you have something?
I think some of the other questions that you raised were excellent, such as the posts in there. Is someone gonna make a 100-foot flower bed raised and then put fencing alongside of that and say that's there to protect my garden? I think you may want to address those questions in addition to what you're talking about here, and maybe defer passing this until you can address the other questions that you raised, which I think are very important. Do you really have a 4-foot raise? You want a 3-foot fence on top of that?
Mm-mm.
Okay, should that
But
be?
somebody will.
should-
Somebody, yeah, I mean, I don't.
Yeah, so,
Yeah, well, but why would somebody want that?
They can.
yeah.
Well, and I
Well,
mean, I
maybe
will
you would.
say,
I mean-
Maybe
with,
maybe it's not 4 feet, but maybe it's 1.5 feet, and then you put a 3-foot fence along that.
I think if it's to enclose a garden, it's
Yeah, I
fair
mean,
enough.
squirrels are going to climb in it. A 3-foot fence is going to do nothing for a squirrel or anything that's a climbing critter. So I mean, that's why it doesn't affect me. I could see where someone that might have something level with the ground might have some additional concerns, but
What about the flower bed in the front?
well, I think that kind of
You raised that.
ties into.
So I
Yeah.
think,
that-
my sense is you've raised a lot of interesting questions that
So to address the one thing that you said, if somebody wants to just put flowers all along the lot line and put a fence there, the garden enclosure has to enclose the garden. It can't just be one-sided. That doesn't make any sense. Well, yeah, it's got to enclose the garden.
And is there
All 4 sides.
Yeah,
So you
Yeah.
can't walk through it then. You'd have to,
yeah, yeah.
another issue kind of go along, is there a time limit? Can it be left up all year long? Because you're not, in this climate, we're not going to be harvesting pretty much past October until the next spring. Is it something that a resident could just leave up all year?
Well, people that have these kind of enclosures, they are up all year long,
That's one
Yeah.
thing, but coming from a townhome association, I'm thinking we have more ground plantings.
Mhm.
And personally, I'd like to avoid them left up all year long because then they end up being in disrepair. And,
Doesn't your homeowners address that at all?
oh, we thought we did until Andy went and took a look at it and said it was okay.
Andy.
But he's, I mean,
From the villages, yeah.
Yeah, see,
Yeah.
from the village.
Yeah.
And I didn't know this was coming. This is one of the reasons I came tonight.
Got, yeah.
Yeah. And we're trying to craft a no fence.
And I always do,
You can interpret it
yeah.
as a fence, and really it's not.
And we do tell the Acacia residents, check with all residents, check with your HOA, check with your HOA too. But yeah, from the village perspective,
We started
yeah.
it though because we told them they had to take it down.
Oh, okay, all
They
right.
wanted backing. They wanted
Yeah.
to be supported by somebody.
Gotcha.
Maybe add some language to this that says that this enclosure is for the specific purpose of protecting a garden, so that we have a little bit of an out if somebody's kind of playing with this
That's what we're
statute
already
limit.
doing, right? With
Yeah,
garden
it's
fences and
included, yeah.
we have the, we're using this.
Yeah. But if somebody tries to say, well, I can put up this enclosure, it has to make sense for a
So
garden.
what I'll do is, we can get all the necessary public notices and newspaper postings done, so this can be other things other than this garden barrier issue we can discuss this at next month's meeting.
Yeah, and I would add a look and do some research on accessible gardening, meaning those with disabilities have the ability to garden, and those structures are more hardscape than anything. So, and if you get a chance, the King
tall.
Brevard, the retirement home there, has an award-winning accessibility garden. So if that's something we want to entertain in whatever we're discussing, we should probably look into that as well.
Okay, yeah.
And just out of curiosity, would this go into effect immediately once it was?
Once the
Voted
board
on?
passes it,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, when do you guys want to get
Well-
the garden in?
Well, because that's what I'm just thinking, like, we're on the cusp of,
Yeah.
vegetable gardening is pretty much going out this month, people are
Yeah,
planting stuff.
yeah.
So especially if we investigate the garden parameters a little bit more, I think maybe those, if we pursue that, should be effective for next season, because I think if people are going to start putting out their gardens now, and then we decide in 3 months that, they have to be a certain size, I think we need to give people time to implement
That's a good point.
any of that
yeah.
changes for the next season when they plant. Just a thought.
Yeah, the commission could definitely include that as in their recommendation. So
Are we going to table a recommendation then?
it's up to you. I don't see an issue honestly either way.
So the process would be, we sort of craft what our recommendation is. It then goes to the village attorney to draft the code amendments, and then
Right.
those go to
To
the
the board.
board. Those go straight to the board rather than coming back here.
Yeah. So
Okay.
basically, what I will actually do the draft, and then the village attorney looks at it, and then the board considers it. And if they pass it, it usually goes into effect right away. But you have control. Well, the board has control over effect dates. So we could pass this ordinance. You could recommend approval of this ordinance now, and I can write the ordinance so that it doesn't go into effect for another month or two, something like that, if we are concerned that we want to pass this at the same time as overall garden regulations.
I would just state, just so people have a way to fence their garden in the meantime, right? I mean, we
Yeah.
don't want to have this issue, because you already have it in front of you now, right?
Yeah,
So if we
yeah.
wait 2 months, people are going to be growing their stuff by then. And they'll be subject to attack, so if it could even be a temporary okay, or the village just doesn't, enforce that for the meantime.
So if we do make this motion, and if the board acts on it, they just may have to act on another motion later when we're talking about the size.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It can
that's
just
no
be
problem, huh?
same process as this, but just a wider scope. So.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Because you wanted us to limit our discussion to
Yeah,
correct?
to be safe legally, because for all zoning amendments, you have to do a public notice in the newspaper, and you have to cite specifically what's up for change. And I posted the notice as something related to garden fences or barriers, not garden regulations generally. So we just want to play it safe legally, as always. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So we'd revisit just the issue of size and placement.
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll put a notice in the newspaper for next month's meeting, just saying zoning code modifications related to gardens. Make it more general.
Yeah, because this really is garden fences, and we can
Yes.
address gardens in
Yeah.
a separate
Yeah.
motion,
Okay.
hearing.
I'm fine with that.
Okay, do we need to repeat?
No, I got the motion.
Okay.
We're still got the motion. Yeah.
If anybody can remember that, would you like to make the motion?
I'll make a motion to pass.
I'll second.
Pass as discussed. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously to, as you know, to approve of mesh fences, garden fences. Now we're exiting the, okay. Motion to close the public hearing on the zoning code modification.
I move to close the public forum.
Okay.
I moved, yes, I make that motion.
And second.
I'll second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, motion carries to close the public hearing. And Andy, you got some comments for us on?
Yeah, I just want to provide a little update, first on development and then also on the shed and fence special use process on the west side of town. And so first, as far as development, so we've heard that the Dunkin' Donuts development that was here for a first look last month, they have pulled out over uncertainty about what Wolf Road is going to look like. So they have pulled out for now. I've spoken to the owner of the property who had come here prior to the Dunkin' Donuts person, and he is still expecting to do something with the property. I think he's going to wait about a year to see what happens with Wolf Road, but that's the development update. As far as shed and fences go, I spoke a little bit about this at last month's meeting, but we're falling a little bit behind in the process for the west side submitting their applications because we sent out letters, certified letters, and the post office did not deliver some. Some people got them late. We weren't sure if people got them. So we extended the deadline to the end of April. So this week is the last week for those homeowners to submit. So far, I think we have 12 total. Some agreed to take it down. Some are going to go through the process. So I think we're going to, in total, have around 15. And so we can get started on that probably next month as well.
Okay,
So that's my update.
that's great. That's great. Maybe we'll get a month off.
And actually, in July we'll get a month off. Village Hall will be closed. So July, have fun. 4th of July celebration. No planning and zoning. So.
Any date on the insurance building that's going up?
Yeah, so they had come to us and said that due to the cost of construction, they were going to hold off for a year. Then they came back to us about a month later and said, actually, no, we're going to try to do it sooner. And that's the last I've talked to them about it. So, and that was about 2 weeks ago, something like that. So.
Is our approval of that open-ended? That's a question. Is there a time limit to the approval? that we're given?
No, there is not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other comments from commissioners or the public? Okay, if somebody would like to make a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
And second?
I'll second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nobody, yay. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.